Picking up where we left off, I'm still working on the little kitty cat. I had some little whiskers. I kind of like mine to go up a little. Lord have mercy, I messed that up. Let's put a little more line work between the ears and the body. I have no rhyme and reason a lot of times as to why I outline stuff and don't, but sometimes a little messy outline can help clean up some edges and help with the details. Let me get that little magenta. Let's see if it hadn't all completely dried. Do a little mix there. Got the water on my brush again. I'm really bad about that. Let's add a little bit of color in there. Not a whole lot of color, just a little faint amount to let her know he's a happy kitty cat. And then a few little bitty hairs. Okay. Well, we've got that on our brush. Let's do a little bit of a nostril there. I'm going to clean that up. If there's any more of that paint mix on here. There he is. Let's add that to the mouth. And here in the ear. A lot of times I would float that in, but since I already had some on my brush, let's thinly add it to the ear. Let's add a little bit up here. And since it's gray, I'm going to pick up a little bit more of the magenta. Okay. You know what? It looks like some of that blue got on to baby Jesus's face. So I'm going to get that little stiff brush again. I'm sorry, I am hitting the camera now. And get that taken out of. We didn't want it to be green. Mercy. Here we go. Much better. Now if I can find my little tube. Now let's go back to that liner. Let's add a few little bangs to the little cow's head. You can paint that solid if you want. And I might, but I just thought I'd start this way and see what's happening. I think I might like it a little better solid, or a little more solid. It's okay to have a few little white streaks in there for highlight. Probably going to add a second coat to that. And there's another example of, if you don't like it, just paint over it. Could use a little more water in my brush. You can tell it's not flowing very freely from the bristles, but maybe I can make do. Well, I've got my liner. I'm going to add a little more water and make some eyes there. It's going to need a second coat. You can add eyelashes if you want. I think cows have the prettiest brown eyes. I was in 4-H and we used to show cows. And I've slept by many a cow. Well, I'm trying to do this without moving it. Normally, I do not bring my eyelashes in, but that's the only way I can do that without moving the piece. I don't want to make y'all seasick. I really like using soft black, but it is a bit more transparent. So sometimes to get a good coverage, have to give 2 or 3 coats of something. Whereas with the black, you can usually get it done with 1 coat. But makes life a little more interesting, doesn't it? Let's outline. You can see I twirled the brush around. I'd let my bristles get a little flat on one side instead of having it round. So, putting a little, few extra hairs in that ear. And that's really looking awful there. They're all the same size. Let's see. There we go. That's a little better. And a few more in here. Kind of get it somewhat balanced. That is not wanting to cover there. There we go. I think that's it for the lines on that for now. Let's add some spots. Don't worry about where your spots are. Put them where you want them. I always wonder why spots appear like they do on animals. It's just, I think it's just the way that God helped make our life a little more interesting, to make us wonder why that's like that. I always said I had a list of things I wanted to ask Jesus, God, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, when I get to heaven. And I've often thought, it's easy to think about heaven in earthly terms because that's all we know. But I figure when I get up to heaven, it's not going to really matter. I'm not going to care anymore. And pretty much, I think everything will be revealed. So we don't have to worry about that. You can use black to do this if you want. It wouldn't take as many coats. It's going to take a couple coats to do this. I must always put a little spot up above their muzzle. I don't know why. I just think it's cute. And maybe on the side of the face. Not real big because you don't want them to take over. See, we can create a cow. That's the thing, one of the many things that I like about painting. It's our own little world. We can do whatever we want. And now, Charcoal seems to have an itch in his ear. Oh, need mommy to help you, Bubs. Just want y'all to know that he's here. I'm using quite a bit of paint here. I'm just kind of peddling it in there. This is called lazy painting because you don't have to go over it 3 or 4 times, which is not a good idea because it takes longer to dry. And there's really a bigger chance that you're going to smear it too. I'm kind of liking how that's looking now. When that dries, I need to do a float over that again because look how sketchy that is. Not good. I'm going to add a little white to his tail. If you've ever been slapped by a cow's tail, it can hurt. I'm going to put a little white up here where his eye's going to be. Let's put a little white in there because a lot of the pictures that I saw of donkeys had white muzzles and had white around their eyes. So if we don't like it, we can cover it up. Continuing with the soft black. Put the big old nose in there. Let's do kind of a sort of big eye. I think that works. And I'm going to get this a little closer to me so I can put some hair down his back, his mane. I'll try to make sure y'all can see that. I have some to come look like they're coming up from the other side, kind of go above his back. Seeing that dot right there reminds me that I covered up some of these dots down in the bottom part here. There was a dot right above that cat that just, it was awful. It's not so bad at the top because that's more as you would expected with the stars in the back, but sometimes you don't need it down in the bottom. I didn't worry so much about it. This isn't like this is a realistic piece anyway. Everything I do is whimsical, and that's what I like. And I think you should paint what you like. When it starts sputtering, add some more water to your brush. Have them go in different ways. You could say he's got a wild hair. Let's add a few little white highlights the same way. Not a whole lot, just a little contrast. Let's go down here and do the same thing to his tail. Still a little white in my brush, and can't really see the bottom of it. It's behind the cow. And if you get that onto the cow's little spot there, just come back here. Know what that little dot is. Okay, just come back with the soft black and cover it up. Oh, I declare that white dot is still in that eye. There we go. And watch me put a dot almost exactly where it was. You know what? I don't really like that white there, after all. Sorry. So I'm going to put a little more slate gray here. Kind of blends it out and makes it not look like just a big old hunk of white there. There. Well, I've got this gray. I'm going to maybe put a little highlight there. Okay, I think that's fine. Now, I'm going to put out some fresh soft black if I can find it. I think I knocked it on the floor a while ago. Okay, I'm going to get out my paint again. Okay, I'm going to put a little oval and then a little circle to that. And I'm going to hope he doesn't look angry. I've had a hard time sketching him to where he didn't look angry. So I might end up redoing the face off camera. I'm not going to lie. And I'm not doing this real solid. Just tapping to get it to where I form the detail, but not dark. And I put in a few little strokes of hair. Need a little more water. It's not moving off my brush. You shouldn't have to work so hard to get stuff done if it's properly loaded. I had just a tad of the soft black. Ooh, I can tell that's not going to work. I got some of the white on there. Oh well. Some of those lines are kind of heavy because I didn't have a good mix of water in there. Just keep going over it. Don't want a whole lot of hair. Some babies are born with a head full of hair, some aren't. I don't know about baby Jesus, but he's going to be just like he is. Let me put a little dot. Maybe a little highlight. Tiny, tiny little highlight there. I think that works. Now let's see if I can get my angular brush again, and let's add a little white highlights to where the soft black is. And again, that white can take over, so you want to be kind of careful a little bit. Kind of do the tops of the spots. Let's put a little highlight on the bird's wings too. You can use the end of your angular brush to clean up some of your floats too. That one got a little bit out of hand. I'm going to come back. I might want to do this with the liner brush. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, that's okay. Add some lines in there. Have you noticed that so much of painting is taken away, putting it back in? But how many times have I said it? It's just paint. I'm going to dry brush some white. In the blanket. I think I want to dry brush some white in the donkey too. And that's the thing about highlighting. It's easier to start out with a little, and you can always add a little more. But something else that you can do if you get too much highlight in there is take your original base coat and go over it. She says, having done that before. I'm going to dry brush over those spots too. I think learning to do a good dry brush is another thing that's important. There's just so many of the techniques of decorative painting that can help. Floating, doing good floats, that's important to learn. Ooh, now see? There you go, a little too much. Had to get that spit out again. If you want to clean up some of those dark spots in your cowl. Take that white and dry brush it. Just putting your base coat back in. Let's put it a little bit in the middle of the manger. Maybe a little bit. I'll put some in the sheep, even though I'm going to put white dots over that. But that'll give another layer of color and texture. You could put some up here in the sky if you wanted. I think I'm going to, if I remember it, put a gold starburst there. So that'll help give the background a little brightness to it. Let's see if I can get a little more of this with the paint brushed out. I'm going to put this behind his head, kind of give it a glow. I'll put a halo on him. I'm going to also put a little of this dry brush where the ground is going to be. I'm going to wash in some yellow there, I think. Now see what just a little bit of dry brushing does? It just helps bring it all together, I think. The problem with so many who dry brush is they have too much paint in there and they get frustrated. So I think that's what happens. Now let's add some straw. Before we do that, I'm going to get another dry brush and I'm going to get some marigold. And let's try to just dry brush some of that underneath our animals to kind of ground them. As I said earlier, I'm not so worried that the blue is the still in the base, because this is whimsical. It's just fun. I'm hoping that adding that little bit of white won't turn this so green. Because you know blue and yellow make green. But this just gives you the impression that there's some straw underneath that. And we'll add a few little strokes under there too. I've put down my tape to try to help me keep in frame, because I've noticed that even some of the big brushes, they get out of frame too, and I think it's kind of funny that I'm not the only one that has some troubles. There we go. I think that's nice. I don't know if I said, I think I did, but this is marigold that I'm using in a dry brush. I'm really going to miss the Artist Club's dry brushes. I think they're some of the better ones that I found. I'm going to add a little more of this white. You know what? Let's go with the bleach sand. I know it doesn't make that much difference, but it won't be as bright. Let's start putting some straw. Start with yellow. There again, just lines. I haven't thinned this, and I might need to in just a minute, but let's just see how we go. I have these going in all directions around. I usually start off with one direction and then come back. Always try to have some coming out, kind of like little bursts coming out of the head and the bottom. I probably shouldn't do this right now because I'll probably put my hand in it, smear it. but maybe we'll just put enough layers on top that it won't matter. It's just the lines to look like straw that's on the ground. Now, I probably could have used a little more water to help that go better, but since it's going to be layers. And I know normally you probably should start with the dark and go go from there. But since I'm trying to keep this in the yellows and the whites, the white behind the yellow helps it show up. We are just about finished. I'm going to, I think this asphaltum's still wet enough in the middle. If you want to do dots and real detail, you want to have fresh paint, but sometimes you can just do just fine. Add a little water and pull it out of that little middle. Might want to work a little bit more of that for my final piece, but this just gives you an idea of what I've done and what the process is. Put a little beak, a little dot for his eyes. Sometimes, if you aren't very good with using a brush to make dots, you can use toothpicks for little bitty ones. Or there's always the stylus. Speaking of which, before I do that, let's see if I can put those legs back in for my sheep. I did those off camera. Put a little crook in it to make it look like it. Usually when I do a sheep or a lot of characters, they have a little lumpy knees. That's just my thing. In this designing world, it's hard to set yourself aside from everybody because pretty much everything's been thought of until you see somebody that comes up with something else and think, oh man, why couldn't I have thought of that? I'm hoping that I put enough white there for the eyes to show up. If not, you can get the lamp black out and do that. It's really too wet for me to be trying this, but sometimes it'll grab it. You gotta be careful so that you don't smear it. Okay, I'm gonna get a fresh dab of titanium white. I'm gonna put some dots on this sheet. I wonder if I can find a smaller stylus so that I can do the eyeballs. Of course not, because I want it. I have so many brushes stuck here and there, and I try to keep the ones that I use close together. Sometimes Oh well. We're just going to pretend this is exactly the size we wanted the dot in his eyes. If you want dots the same size, put them, dip your stylus in your fresh paint. If you don't care that they're the same size, just keep dotting. Sometimes you can get about the same size as for the first dot. You don't put the full pressure on it. And the second one you put full pressure. But recently, a lady was talking about her students, how she would watch the students struggle to try to get another dot out of the dip. And she said, I don't care what you do. You're only going to get 5 or 6 dots, so go ahead and load it again. And I never thought about that because sometimes I find myself thinking, I can get one more dot. But I don't like my dots to have, I don't even know how to describe it. It looks like the center is gone. So I try to have fresh paint. Now see that? Just tip dot over it. And I think that will do it for the paint. Of course, now I'm going to try to put in a halo without totally destroying. Now, I thought I had gold out here, but maybe I don't. Or did I knock it off? I am so bad about knocking paint off because I don't have any more room. I think there's always room for one more something. And I'll find that as soon as I get up. Here's my gold. Doesn't matter what gold you use. Some of them are a little stronger and darker. I'm going to see what glorious gold. I love Dazzling Metallics. Love these paints. Okay, let's see if I can turn this upside down without destroying my little sheepies. And this is going to be hard for me to get it straight without holding it, but I'm going to do my best. Kind of between the middle of the words. Draw a line, and I'm not going to worry so much that the thickness is the same. Oh yeah, I just love this gold. And I think I'm just going to do a halo. Sometimes I dry brush it. There we go. I like it. I hope this doesn't look like I struggled with it as much as I did. I'm gonna probably pull out the black and do those because that looks really bad. And yep, there we go.